Hello and welcome to the Choice Wisdom Podcast, the podcast where we talk about making the choices that create the life that you want. I am one of your hosts, Gail Goodman Lynch,
And I'm your other host, Louisa Garrett.
and I'm so excited to talk about judgment with you because I got to tell you, as we were talking about doing this episode, I've spent the last week just kind of observing myself to see just how much I
Okay. What
judge.
did you find out? What did you find out about
Okay,
yourself?
so I judge a lot more than I think I do.
Yeah, I think we all do. I think we
Oh,
all do, though, Gil. Yeah.
100%. And I was a little shocked actually because I didn't think I'd be perfect. Like I don't judge anybody, but I was like, oh my gosh, that happens a lot. And I don't necessarily say it out loud, but I think it a
What
lot.
you think it? It pops up in that little mind. Yep.
Yeah, but it reminded me of how you said you had to filter yourself on your kindness journey at the beginning. It's like, oop, can't say that. Nope, can't say that,
Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
loved it.
Yeah. And judgment is one of those things, too, that you have to filter yourself. Like, can't say that.
Or I really don't want to say that, but oh my gosh, I'm still thinking it. What's up
Yeah.
with that? Why do you think we
Yeah.
judge people so much? What's your take on that?
I think it's because we're judging ourselves. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So I think we judge other people based on how we would do whatever they're doing. And I don't think that's fair. And so I think it's a lot of taking self, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like taking
Like more
self
greater
stock.
self-awareness and
Yeah,
yeah.
self-awareness and using what you think you would do instead of just allowing the situation to be.
Yeah, and allowing people to be them too,
Yeah,
right?
100%, because we're all different and we're all like beautiful humans, and we don't think alike. And I think as humans, sometimes we put a lot on other people based on how we would show up in certain situations.
I 100% agree with that. And in fact, I
Yeah.
was thinking about this because Carl Jung talked about this
Okay.
a lot. He talked about like shadow selves. And
Hmm.
the concept behind a shadow self is that, you see in other people the thing you dislike most about yourself, and sometimes don't
Yes.
even acknowledge about yourself. But the reality is, it's like any one of us could be, you know, really, really good or really, really bad. You could
Yeah.
be, Hitler or Mother Teresa, but like 90% of us, or probably
Or in between.
99% are like somewhere in the middle of that. Nobody's quite that bad or that good. But when you start to see someone else doing something or saying something or acting something or being something, then either you're judging it because you don't like that about yourself, or I also heard another interesting take on this when I was doing like my tapping, my emotional freedom technique journey,
Yeah.
is that you also sometimes see something in someone else that you don't allow yourself. So,
Ooh.
for example,
I like that. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, like say you see this beautiful woman who's, obviously got tons of money and she's wearing the perfect clothes and she's driving the perfect car and she's going out to lunch and she's doing all these things, and she seems very free and, carefree, but you might be judging like, yeah, she's probably married to some like old dude and, she's probably really miserable underneath all of it. The stuff that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stories we make up, but we might be doing that because actually we're not letting ourselves have freedom or letting ourselves enjoy life the way we want to. And so then we kind of go pile that judgment on someone else that we think has what we don't have.
I love that. And yes, I 100% agree with that because I
Yeah.
think, yeah, people judge others for what they have because you want to have it. And so, therefore, because they have it, we're going to say all of this negative stuff about them because they have it and we don't have it. And
Yeah.
that's so interesting.
Yeah. Like trashing somebody because, they're just living the life you really wish you had.
You really wish you had. And it's like you just said, or she must be married to a horrible person. You don't know her life. She could just
No
be
idea.
she could be living the absolute best life in the whole world, but yet we want to put something negative onto that person because we don't have it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
And
crazy.
yeah, it's kind of a crazy thought, right? So that a lot of this was going through my mind, and I thought, okay, so how do we arrest ourselves in the moment of judgment and examine what it is the heck we're doing? If it's that, or if it's, I judge you because my religion says you can't do something. That's another one,
Mm,
right?
man, I know we don't talk about religion a lot, but I think religion is one of the biggest sources of judgment.
I agree. I will say, when I was in high school, so I went to a very small high school in a very small West Texas town.
Yeah.
And if you didn't go to one of the two churches in town, and three guesses who they were, and you don't even really need it. It's either the Baptist Church or the Church of Christ in
Okay.
Texas, right? So if you weren't either one of those things, there was something like fundamentally weird about you. Like there was like
Wow.
you
Yeah.
did not fit in at all.
Yeah.
And having been like an unchurched Christian whose mom was Lutheran and baptized me Lutheran, and then my dad was a non-practicing Catholic, and we sometimes went to an Episcopal church. I was like the oddest duck in town.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I will remember I had this friend, we were best friends, but she kept trying to get me to go to her church for a revival.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know that I need to go. I mean, I tried to be polite about it at first, but then I was like, I just not feeling, I'm not feeling it. I don't need to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess the last time she asked, maybe I was a little snarky about it, perhaps. I will own that. I don't remember, honestly.
Yeah.
But I remember we were in the bathroom in high school and she looked at me and she said, I can't be your friend anymore because you're
Wow.
going to hell. And I was like, whoa, wait, just what just happened?
Yeah.
And I thought,
Because you didn't want to go to the revival?
yeah, and because
Wow.
yes, they're all wrapped up, and that was the judgment she had of me because I didn't want to take her invitation to save myself from whatever weird religion stuff I had going on, that I was just doomed,
Yeah.
and therefore she could no longer be my friend because of that.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, it set me on a journey of not being a Christian for a long time. Honest to God, I was like, I'm gonna be
Wow.
anything but that. But what was weird was when I went through all the world's religions, I mean, and I looked at all of them throughout like
Yes.
my 20s and
Talk
stuff.
about it. Let's talk about it. Yep.
At the core, what is
Is
the
what?
one thing they're all about?
Love.
Hello. Love
Every single religion, every single one of them, the core
everyone.
of them is love.
Yeah. And if you can strip out fear, and there's another aspect of this too, and we won't want to beat religion to death, but like
Oh
this
yeah, no, yeah, yeah,
of original sin, so like if you come from like a Christian background, for example, sin is a big deal in the Christian religion.
100%. Yeah,
And it's always kind of this like surrounded with guilt and shame. I always used to joke, hey, I'm an Episcopalian and we're like Catholics, we have all the guilt, but half the clergy. That was always kind of a running joke in our church. But, it's like this guilt, it's like we're already fundamentally bad. But
yeah,
really, all it was, and if you want to go back to the original story, from Genesis, they ate from the tree of knowledge, then it really was just letting fear in.
yeah,
Because before that, it was just all love.
yeah.
That knowledge of fear is what screwed everything up.
Agreed, agreed. And we can get off religion in a minute, but also I like what you just said. You're an unchurched Christian, and I thought that I love the way you
Yeah, because
phrased
we
that.
never went to church. We celebrated like Christmas and stuff, but we didn't like show up for church. And I have to admit today, I'm part of a church community and I still never show up for church, but that's just because of a whole nother busy thing with taking care of moms and stuff over the
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It happens.
I can't
But yeah,
on that.
Jesus, I believe me and Jesus were best friends. And I always think back to when I see people judging or when I see people pointing fingers or whatever. I always think back to the stone because what is
Mm.
it? He who is without sin cast the first. No one can because we have all sinned, and yet we some people point and judge because people live a certain lifestyle or they believe whatever they believe, and because it's a little bit different than what you believe, then their sin is greater than yours. And that has always baffled me, and I've always found that very interesting, that even though they preach that sermon a lot, because I've been in church my entire life. And they preach that sermon a lot, but yet we still point the fingers and we still, do the things that we're saying not to do. And so I just find that very interesting.
And I really do think it is just all fear based.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, and I think the question I like to ask myself, or the way that it helps me, especially this last week when I've really been paying attention to judgment,
Yeah.
is I try to take a pause and I ask the question, what is it I'm really afraid of here?
Did you come up with any answers?
Um, I came up with several answers, and it was mainly, more about me than the other
Okay.
person typically when I
And
would
it
come.
always is.
And it always was. It always pointed back to me. It's like, I'm
Yeah.
afraid that I don't have this. I'm afraid I'm not enough. I'm afraid of, yeah, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Fill in the
Yeah.
blank. Yeah. And then that kind of gave me prompts for things like journaling, or,
Hmm. Hmm.
reflection when I'm
Yeah.
doing any of my, quiet time, meditation.
So how do we get
Release it.
beyond the fear?
I think you get beyond the fear by truly relaxing.
Mm.
And because you can't put suggestion into your subconscious mind when you're
Okay.
frantic or you're up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you truly relax, then you can like tap into that well inside of you. It's like
Yeah.
that's the only time you find it is when you relax.
Yeah.
And
And when you're quiet.
and you're quiet, right? And
Hmm.
and I think even busy people can do this because I'm a busy person, right? Like
Yeah.
I've got a lot going on, and there are times that I will sit down and I'm like, I'm going to totally meditate. But sometimes it's just laying in bed at night before falling to sleep and
Yeah.
just feeling that relaxation and then just asking for help, you
Yeah.
know? And that goes back to not just religion, but spirit, right?
But spirituality for sure.
We're all part of the big divine whole, however you
Hmm.
define. And the one thing that the most religions speak to is that people have choice, right?
Yeah.
And our whole podcast is choice wisdom. It's
It's
about
about choice, was yeah.
but you can't get help from divine beings, whoever those people are, right? I mean, maybe it's angels, maybe it's God, maybe it's, whatever, unless you ask for it. They can't come along and just like nudge you along. You have to
Yeah.
ask.
Because you also have free will.
Yeah, it's that free will problem.
Exactly. Exactly. So you believe there's a higher power?
I absolutely believe there's a higher
Me
power.
too. Me too.
Well, and
100%.
and we talked about that last time too. You were talking about we
Yeah.
belong to each other and we're all interconnected. I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
It,
I
it
don't see
explains a lot.
how. Hmm.
It explains a lot.
It explains a lot. Yeah. And there are like certain things that happen in the world that are unexplainable. And I believe it comes from the higher power. And it's just, we have to, um, I personally acknowledge that so that, I am open to what the higher power has for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and so for me, it's God, and I firmly believe that there is a God, and how He interacts with me and works with me in my life and on my kindness journey. I believe it's definitely a spiritual journey for me.
Yeah. I love that. And I love knowing that I can ask for the assist personally.
A hundred
I
percent.
don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
and I think when we try to be better people too, like noticing if we're judging and releasing that judgment and trying not to be judgmental of other people, then we're not only helping ourselves, obviously, but we help the greater whole because all of us are connected. So when one of us heals, we all heal.
Yeah. Because we belong to each other.
Because we belong to each other.
Yeah.
A
What are
marvelous
I'm going to
thing.
tell you some of my things. What are some of the things that you caught yourself judging? So for me, I just came back from visiting my niece. She lives in South Carolina, and I was there for about a week and a half. And she has road rage. And so every time she would do, I'd be looking like, why stop that? And I would literally judge her for having the road rage. And then I started thinking myself, I'm like, why are you judging her for, and it became a whole thing. So that was one of the things that really stood out, is that every time she would say something while we were in the car, I would catch myself judging her.
Judging her, judging others.
Judging her, judge exactly.
I used to have the worst road rage. Oh, my daughter could probably tell you stories, like she learned most of her cuss words from me while I was driving around in the car.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
and it's funny because I remember I was a stoplight, I don't know, a year or so ago, after I finally decided from just a judgment perspective is that people get to be them. And people make mistakes
Yeah.
too. And how much energy am I willing to put into someone else's just bad timing, bad judgment, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I was sitting at a stoplight and it was on getting on LBJ Freeway on Preston. And for
Okay.
some weird reason at this one stoplight, whoever's at the front never is looking at when the light goes. It
Yeah.
seems like it happens every time I go. And lay it on the horn, move it, buddy. And I almost did it. And then I was just sort of like, am I really in that much of a hurry that I can't wait the extra 5 or 6 seconds for the guy to look up from his phone and go, oh, I got to turn?
Yeah.
And I just let it go. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful because otherwise, I got laid on the horn. Then I had all that judgment, that anger, and I'd have been driving, with my hands, tightly wrapped around the
Clenched.
steering wheel,
Yeah.
clenched, PO'd at this guy, and
Yeah.
thinking about it for the next 10 or 15 minutes on the rest of my drive home.
Right.
What a
Right.
waste of energy.
It is about energy too. And that's funny you should bring that up. What gets me is that people who start honking when the light immediately changes.
Oh, yes.
Like
Yeah.
give
I
them a second. It's gonna take a second to take the foot off the brake to put it onto the gas.
Yeah, it's
And
almost like they're
so
hovering and waiting, like I'm
they're like, as soon as that turns, I'm gonna honk my horn.
and yet another waste of energy. It's like, oh my gosh, you could be taking a nice deep breath and thinking
Yeah.
about how beautiful the sky is this afternoon and not just hovering over the steering wheel, ready to.
Yeah. You just mentioned judgment. So, like, everyone has judgment, not like a good judgment, bad judgment. What's the difference between judgment and judging?
Yes, that's actually, I think, an interesting question because, yes, you have to make judgments about things,
Yeah,
right? Like if you're standing on a busy street and cars are flying by, you need to judge whether or not it is safe to cross the street. And if you don't use
correct.
your judgment, you're going to be smushed.
Right.
You don't want them in the hospital, so that's not okay. But
We
then
don't
there,
want that.
yeah, you don't want that. But I think, when judging, it's
Hmm.
like when you're just all of a sudden bringing all of your own gunk
Yeah,
up and like flinging the mud on the other person.
yeah,
It's like, why'd you say that something like that? Or why do you act that way? Or why are you married to that person? Or why do you stay in this job that you complain about all the time?
yeah,
And I think there's a fine line between judging and potentially saying the thing that helps the person get past what they're doing too. You
yeah,
know, because sometimes people will come and like dump on you and complain, and then you sit there thinking, oh my gosh, would you just stop talking right now? But maybe sometimes that happens because they need to hear someone like you or like me,
yeah, yeah,
say
yeah,
something or ask them the question that helps break the cycle, you know?
yeah. I agree with that. And I also think that hearing someone ask you questions, or I don't even think offer advice, because sometimes I think when you get unsolicited advice, that that's also judgment. That's
It
all, we're
is
also
judgment.
judging rather.
Yeah.
And so, but if you have come to someone in the hopes of them to give you advice, then I think it's helpful to be open to that dialogue. But I also think that, like I said, that unsolicited advice is definitely judging.
Yes, absolutely. And I do feel like sometimes people come and they kind of offload on you. And I've tried to get in the habit of this myself because I used to be the worst. I'm a fixer, right?
Yeah, me
So I'd be
too.
like, I want to go I want to fix that problem. Like, oh, you should go do such and such and fix that
Yeah,
problem, but yes, a form of judgment. I try to tell like stories from my own life. It's like, oh, I had a similar situation. And
yeah,
this is how I handled it. And sometimes that is what people need to hear. And it's not like I'm saying you got to go do that, but
exactly. It's like, this is
there's
what I did in my situation.
yeah, and I think that helps people. It's like that's
Yeah,
what this podcast is kind of about too, having conversations like this, and someone might listen and say, "Oh, that's exactly what I needed to hear today," because I have been struggling with that.
yeah. And I have found lately, in recent years, because before I would be the one to give unsolicited advice. For example, how I feel about my nieces and nephews, absolutely love them. And so when they would come to me with whatever situation or problem they may have, I'm immediately jumping into, all right, this is what you should do. And sometimes they didn't need that. They just needed to vent, right? And
Mhm.
so I had to learn to not do that. And
Yeah.
so now they have to like, no, I'm asking you, what would you do in this situation? Because now I'm like, oh, that's, interesting. I step back because I don't want to force my opinion onto them. And so the niece that I just visited in South Carolina, she'll be like, "No, I'm asking you, what should I do?" I'm
What
like, "Oh,
should
okay, you're
I
asking me."
do? Well, if you're asking, let me roll up the sleeves. Let's get started.
Yeah, since you're asking.
Sit down. I won't tell you.
Right. But before, I definitely was one of the people who would try to fix things with my unsolicited advice. So, and that's part of growing too.
That is a huge part of growing is learning when to just stop talking.
100%.
Just
A hundred
listen.
percent. Yeah.
Don't step over people because I used to.
Exactly, because they feel safe enough to come to you with
Mhm.
whatever they're coming to you with, that if you start stepping on them or stepping over them, or causing them more anxiety, then they will stop coming to you.
Yeah, because they're gonna, yeah, and it damages the relationship long term.
It does. It does because in their minds they're thinking, I don't want to hear Aunt, because they call me Aunt Lou. I'm either Aunt Lou or Aunt Lulu. Bye bye. So in their minds they're like, I don't want to hear Aunt Lou's mouth. You know what I mean? And so now I've created a barrier because I have offered so much unsolicited advice that now they're like, oh, wait a minute. So I had to relearn how to interact. And when they do come and ask for advice, they say, I need your advice. And
Yeah.
then that way I know, then, okay, you want my opinion on this.
Yeah, and that trains people too that if they feel like they get too much solicited unsolicited advice because they tend to vent, because I used to just complain constantly and I would get all
Mm.
kinds of unsolicited advice and then I get angry about that and I complain about that. But that trains the person who's seeking the advice to ask directly for it. Like
Yeah.
at this point, I want you to give me your idea. I find this with a teenage daughter. Yeah,
Okay.
she's an adult now, but she's a teenage daughter. And
Yeah.
she'll talk about things that go on at school, for example.
Hmm.
She'll have an
Hmm.
opinion about something, which I see it very differently because my perspective on the whole thing is different because I'm not
Yeah.
in it. And then I find that sometimes I will want to be supportive of her and sort of pile on to the judgment because I want to be in support because I'm hearing it from her perspective, and I have to
Yeah.
stop myself sometimes. And
Why?
do that.
Why do you stop yourself?
Well, I stopped myself because it's like I'm not in the situation, so really I
Hmm.
have no judgment there,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's really just sort of adding fuel to the fire of her not being able to sort of like navigate that challenging situation on her own, and coming to a place of non-judgment about it.
Right. And that's the hard part because you are a parent. I have a bunch of nieces and nephews. I'm not a parent, but I have parented a lot of people, through basketball and my nieces and nephews. But you also it's hard to step back to allow them the space to figure it out for themselves, because you don't want them to suffer. You don't want them to make a bad decision, what you would consider a bad decision. But to allow them the space to navigate that helps them in the future to figure out how to navigate different situations. But that's hard sometimes because you want to be in support of it, or also shield them
It's
from
the
whatever is
rescue
happening.
factor. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's like I want
Hmm.
to rescue you from a bad choice, but therein
Yeah.
lies the judgment because
Yeah.
if maybe that's not a bad choice for them. I'd heard this, I thought this was really brilliant. Someone was talking about how you make choices. So,
Hmm.
this whole choice thing. A choice for you may be a good choice for you, but a bad choice for me. And neither
Yeah.
one of them are really good or bad. It's really the question you need to ask yourself is this aligned to who
Mm,
I am in my own truth. And I
right.
think that's a profound idea.
It is.
Yes.
Let's talk more about that. Explain
Yeah.
more about that because I love that.
Yeah. So, like, I think everybody's got their own soul journey, right? And we're all here doing our own thing. We kind of talked about this last time. It's like you could do the exact same job, like acting, but you do it very
Yeah.
differently. All of
Yeah.
us are doing life differently. We're doing living differently. And there are choices that I could make because, my job requires it of me, or my church tells me that's the right thing to do,
Yeah.
or my therapist has advised, blah, 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 or whatever. But if it doesn't feel on the inside like it's aligned who I am, then technically that's a bad choice for me.
Yeah.
But the same choice might be great for you or someone else
Or
because
someone
it
else.
does
Yeah.
align to them. And if we can see people as making choices from their own alignment, then gosh, you could just let go of judgment right there.
You really could. How do you do that? Okay, let's talk about alignment. That I love this skill, by the way. So
Let's go down that path.
let's go down this path. So say a certain choice is not aligned, like you just said, within you. How do you resist judging someone else for that exact same choice, but it's aligned for them?
I think if you can just remember that
Hmm.
everybody makes choices aligned to themselves, like that whole idea of the alignment, and you let go of the judgments because it's like, hey, somebody's making the choice. So probably a really great example, because this is something people do judge, is people who are LGBTQ plus and perhaps get
Okay.
married. And
Yep.
then some people will judge that because they don't think that's right, or they don't think adopting kids is okay, etc.
Yep.
But for them, that's an aligned choice.
Yeah.
And to sit in judgment of that when you're not that same kind of person with those choices ahead of you makes zero sense, because you don't have a right really to even judge and because it's like that's a totally different person than you.
A
um
hundred percent. A hundred
but
percent.
yet
And it,
people try to impose their own belief systems on others because they feel, and honestly will feel very, very right in that, because they think, okay, well, what you're doing is just plain wrong by
yep.
definition.
By their definition. Yep.
Yeah. It's like, but it's by your own definition. It does not apply to other people.
So I think it's something with the generations as well, especially like elderly people, and I'm specifically talking about elderly and then LGBTQ with the younger generations, that because people have their beliefs, have what they do consider right and wrong, and they doesn't matter. This is what I believe. It's wrong. And then you have a younger LGBTQ plus person who is making choices for themselves that's right for them. And I think that's just a lot of generational judging happening as well.
I
And so,
agree, because things
yeah.
change over the decades. Because I think about, like, I used to have two neighbors that had been together, two men that were together from the 1950s. Imagine how hard that was
Wow.
to be together.
Yeah.
But they've been together a long time. But, imagine the sort of like weird slippery slope sort of conversations they had to
A
have.
hundred percent.
I
Yeah.
moved into this house like in 2000s, people were far more accepting. So it didn't
Yeah.
seem weird to me that these two guys were married and lived next door, and it just seemed normal. But dial it back into the 1980s when I was growing up, that would have been super weird. Like
Yeah.
people would have really been judgy, people would have moved off the block, that kind of thing. And the weird thing though is, Louisa, even back in those days when those sorts of things were accepted,
Yeah.
I couldn't accept them.
Mm.
I couldn't, because I've always seen people as people. So
Yeah.
like I always had a hard time with people who were prejudiced and
Mm-hmm.
racist and other things, like the things that, it's like, okay, but that was a product of the time and people were different and things have changed. But I have always never seen that as okay.
Yeah.
So I think
Agreed. And
there are a
I
lot of people that are like that.
Yeah, still today. And I think it's harder for the older, and I'm not making any excuses or concessions, but I also think that because they have lived such a long life in different decades and different times in this world,
Maybe.
to, you know what I mean? And now they're in their 80s, 90s, 70s, whatever the case may be, and they're set in it. And but I also think that love is we come back to the word love, right?
Right. That's the
And
thing. It's like if you truly love people and you
mm,
really love someone, like so maybe judging a family member, for example, that's the one
yeah,
I really don't get. Like people who will disown children because they become something they didn't think they would be,
right.
or a family member of any sort, judging them for that. And we are sometimes hardest on ourselves and our family, right? Because we're all
Yeah,
up a lot. We know a lot about each other and we know how to push each other's buttons too when you get when it
100%.
comes to it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But at the same time, it's like if you truly, but that's where your expression of love is so much easier to see is in your family
Yeah,
because it's hard to say I love a person who lives on, K Street in Bangladesh. I don't know that person. I've never met
yeah,
that. So now if I
yeah.
met that person, I'd be like, I love you, you're just
Right,
another human.
right.
But I feel love for my daughter and my husband and my pets and everybody, people who are close to my family. That feels like love. And I could not imagine judging someone to such a point that I would want to fracture that.
That part right there. And I think it's also you don't have to say anything, right? You can
Mm.
disagree wholeheartedly with whatever they're doing, whatever it doesn't even have to be LGBTQ plus. It doesn't have to be whatever that's you can disagree with them wholeheartedly, but you don't have to say anything. You can just love them and send out that love. And that goes back to that unsolicited advice. Just because you believe a certain situation, a certain thing, doesn't mean that that is the belief system of the
Right.
world.
Of
You
the
know what I
whole
mean?
world. Yeah. And
Yeah,
it might have
that's
been
your
the belief
belief
system
system.
of your community or your background.
Yeah,
But do you have to hang on to it? So you're talking about like 80, 90-year-olds, 70-year-olds. It's like, do you get set in your ways? But it's so funny. I was having this conversation with someone else the other day. It's like, you are never too old to learn new tricks. That whole saying of the old
a
dog,
hundred percent.
not true. I
Yeah,
mean, our brains are neuroplastic. We can literally change our brains in the minute. And it
if we
happens
wanted to.
if we want to. That's the difference.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if we want to be more loving people and we truly want to double down on love, I think judgment is an awesome place to start because it is one of the hardest things, one, to recognize we're doing, and
yeah.
two, to overcome and to be willing to release it and let it go.
Yeah, and that's it. And that is almost a full circle, Gail. That brings us right back to religion. Because what is
Yep.
the core of every religion?
Love, love, love.
And if your belief system is rooted in whatever religion it is that is allowing you to use that for judgment, then you're missing the core of the religion in and of itself, which
Yes.
is love.
Right. And you get to make a choice. So just because your pastor or your priest or other people in your faith community believe something about someone and want to judge them does not mean you also have to buy into it because you're part of that community. You're
Yeah.
still an individual, even though you're part of a group.
Yeah. And I'm not saying to, I mean, believe what you believe because everyone has beliefs, right?
Oh,
And I just want to make it clear that I'm not knocking the belief system, but what I
mm,
am saying is that get back to the core, which is love.
right. But if you start seeing the love and thinking, okay, my larger church community might be judging a person for X, Y, or Z, I don't know that I feel that I need to do that though.
Right.
But I
Right.
can say, and trying to reconcile yourself to being the odd duck in the situation. Back to my high school experience, yeah, I was the odd duck, but you know what, it didn't make me any less of a person because I didn't go to that one church or the other church in town.
Yeah.
Still me.
But do you know who also was an odd duck, Gail?
Hmm.
Jesus.
he, that's true. he like he had to live off of other people's charity a lot of the time too.
Yeah.
He didn't have a regular job for about 3 years and wandered around. He had to live off of other
He
people's.
was an odd duck, but you also know what Jesus didn't do?
What's that?
Judge people.
Yeah, this is true. And he would talk about not doing it too.
And he would talk about, and I think that's the going, it's the concept of Christianity is not necessarily tied to the belief system of Jesus.
I 100% agree.
You know what I mean?
Well, and it's
Because
evolved
I
over
think there's so
time.
many. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's evolved over time too. Because I mean, if you want go back 2,000 years to like the original church on the rock with Peter, and then it sort of like, evolved into what became the Catholic Church, and
Yeah.
everybody had to be Catholic forever. Like the Middle Ages, everybody was Catholic. And then all of a sudden, Martin Luther and people like him all looked at each other and said, you know what? This system's kind of busted. We're going to go in a different direction. And they nailed something to the door on the church in the 1500s and said, yeah, we're starting Protestantism, which is not what they said at the time, but that's what it
Right.
became
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
like the Catholic Church has lost its way, so religion changes all the time,
It
and just
changes all
because
the time, but the
2,000
core,
years ago that was the idea, it doesn't have to be the same. The ideas that are still the same are just all the ones rooted in love that Jesus of Nazareth as a teacher shared with people.
as a teacher, he, like you said, he walked around for 3 years preaching love, showcasing love, living love. And then when he saw people doing the judging, he was like, hey, stop that.
Yeah, he was like, hey, I got another idea for you. How about you love everybody, and then imagine how much more joyful your life is, right?
Man, yeah, yeah.
Judgment's heavy when you get right down
Judgment
to
is
it.
so heavy. It's to be able to put yourself on a judging pedestal and that's all you do is judge. Like that is has to be heavy in
Yeah,
your soul, on your shoulders, in your heart. And if we took that off and just loved, how much more, like you just said, joy, how much more goodness there would be in the world. And
right.
that's
And
what that's
total
what we want.
freedom.
We need more love. We need more goodness.
We need more love and goodness, freedom from the shackles of having to like make judgments on other people and
Yeah.
hold other people to an accountability that only belongs to us.
Yeah. Oh, that's that's a good conversation, Gail.
I think this was a great conversation. So if we had to come
There's
up,
so many more levels that we can get into as
oh my
well.
gosh, we could probably go on about this for days. But if we're going to
Yeah.
high level it, if we're going to high level it, what are like the three things that you can do as just an individual person
hmm
to do better with the judgment thing, like to
Yeah.
release judgment?
Yes, I like what you said earlier, which was pause and then take a breath.
Hmm.
And I think we talked about this last time too. And breathing is huge for me, and I'll probably talk about this every episode
Well, it's
because
the
I
one
do
thing that's most important to us because if we don't breathe, we will die.
100%, 100%. And breathing gives you that pause
It
so
does.
that you can just be like, and then you can figure out how you want to move into the world. So I think breathing and just taking a beat is good.
I agree. I think if you take three really deep belly breaths, is what
Yeah.
if people do ask for my opinion and advice, that's usually what I would tell people is take three really deep breaths because it does calm down your nervous system and it creates space. And with space, you've got a lot more optionality. Yeah, and I think from what we were talking about a little earlier as well is
hmm
remembering that if you're judging someone else, it might be something about you that you're judging. That
Yeah.
helped me the most.
Yeah.
And it still helps me because clearly this last week I was judging anyway, even though I, like to claim I don't judge all that much anymore. I do.
Yeah.
But when I do,
We all do.
yeah, when I do, I try to remember it's like, okay, what's really at stake here? What's really going on here? And I'm willing to look at myself first to figure that out. And
Yeah.
it's always something within me. And that can be just asking the question and waiting for the answer. Because it's amazing when you ask yourself a question. This is
hmm
what your brain does. If you give your brain a problem, it has to go and solve it. Like it
Yeah.
has no other choice. Even when you stop thinking about it, it will go and solve it. And maybe you don't get your answer right away, but eventually, when this judgment comes back around, you will possibly do it a different way because the brain's already solved it for you. It's already figured out, okay, that's why I was reacting that way. And next time I'm going to do it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that also goes because I was going to say acknowledge the judgment, but that's exactly what you just said is acknowledging
Yeah.
the
Acknowledge
fact
that
that
you
you're
do it.
doing. Yeah.
Well, and here's an interesting one. So maybe we won't do a top three because this is like a whole nother digression. But how giving yourself the grace not to judge yourself
Oh, yeah. Because that's huge. That's
is
huge.
huge because we might go around talking bad about other people and talking trash, but imagine how much trash we talk about ourselves in our heads all day long. I mean,
It's
when you
that
really think about
self-talk.
it, oh my,
Yeah.
oh my word.
Yeah.
And trying to see things without judgment, because like, spiritual leaders like Eckhart Tolle, for example, would be like, see things with non-judgment. And when I first kind of heard about that, I'm like, how the heck do you even do that?
Yeah.
And and it's really just intentionally trying to release the stress response, usually,
Yeah.
right? It's like the getting all tied up, and back to your point, breathing, take a
Hmm.
pause, breathe. And if you get in that habit, it's helpful. And being present. And Eckhart Tolle was the one that recommended this too, is that if you want to try to practice more presence, is when you're washing your hands, which you do several times a day, like really pay attention to it. Like
Oh,
tune out everything else
like
and
the act of
really
washing your hands,
the
pay
act
attention
of
to the
washing
act.
your hands. Yeah, when you're running your hands into the water and you're getting the soap, but if you really pay attention and turn off all the monkey mind crazy talk that goes on in your head all day long, turn off the track,
Yeah.
it trains you to be more present and to actually start noticing this stuff and be less judgmental about it. It's almost like it allows you that a level of detachment
Hmm.
from the crazy.
Yeah. And if you want to take it to one more level, is write down everything that you notice yourself judging.
I
And
love
then,
that. Writing down
man,
is powerful.
like everything. And if you start to recognize like, ooh, I was a little judgy 25 times today. You know what I mean? And then
And a lot of it was about the same kind of stuff.
it's about the same kind of stuff. And so that allows you the space to not only write it down, but to really see it written down. And
Right.
then you can figure out whatever that trigger is
Yeah.
and why you find so much judgment in whatever that thing is. And then that's some internal work that needs to happen.
Yeah. It starts pointing to the internal work that you need to do. And you can
Hmm.
look at that without judgment. You can look at it with joy. Like I like to pat myself on the back and say, oh, I figured it out. Yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Right.
now I can
Right.
do something about it. It's no longer a hidden thing in my subconscious or something I just do without thinking. Now
Yeah.
it's my awareness. And now I've got the power to solve it.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
It's very cool.
I think we've solved the judging
Well,
crisis of the
that's
world.
it. No more judging. Although I did notice the other day, and am I allowed to judge people who still haven't taken down their Christmas lights? And it's out.
No, you're not.
Okay.
Because the Christmas lights being up is aligned within them. And
Or
it's
maybe
not aligned within you, but it's
it's
aligned
not
within
aligned with
them.
it me, but by golly, other people, if they want to leave them up till St. Patty's Day and beyond, it's all good.
Yep. And I say change it every month. We just had Valentine's Day, so maybe they had hearts and stuff on their Christmas tree.
Maybe. I don't
St.
know.
Patty's Day is coming up. Maybe we're gonna put some green. Easter is coming up. I say let them
Yeah,
have it.
make it look
Christmas
like Easter.
lights, Christmas trees, all of it. Let them have it.
Have it. No judgment. No judgment. Well, this has been another awesome episode, so I cannot wait to sync up with you again. We've got a few guests
Yes,
coming on here pretty
we
soon.
do. And I'm very excited to talk
We're
to
lining
everyone.
people up, so
Yeah,
we will probably have a guest on to our next episode, and heaven only knows what we're going to talk about because they get to bring their own gift, and we don't get to judge that either. So let's do it.
exactly. Exactly. All right.
All
Good
right.
seeing you. Good talk to you, Jill.
See you next time.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Choice Wisdom Podcast. The opinions expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the owners or producers of this podcast. The information shared on this podcast is intended to inspire you, but it is not presented as financial, legal, or medical advice. Choice Wisdom is edited by the amazing marketing team at It's a Good Sign, our sponsor located in Dallas, Texas. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved. For more information, please visit choicewisdompodcast.com.